Hello, welcome. My name is Liz Sisk. I'm a scientific illustrator, and today I'll be talking about how I worked with entomologists to create reconstructed illustrations of extinct species that are preserved in amber. A little bit about me: I'm a freelance scientific illustrator and designer based in Washington, D.C. I graduated from the University of Georgia, where I majored in scientific illustration and minored in entomology. So I'm technically not an entomologist, but I do draw bugs. You're probably wondering, what is scientific illustration? It is an art form that creates educational visuals for researchers and scientific communicators. There's a variety of different types of scientific illustration. There's the traditional scientific illustration, which we'll be talking more about today. There's also scientific diagrams and charts, and then I also do graphic design as well, and that's an example of the BioEquips Bugs website, which you might be familiar with. I worked with Royce Cumming to design that. Scientific illustration and entomology have a long history together. Before photography, scientific illustration was the main way to communicate insect morphology, and you could even communicate additional things that photographs can't, such as the full life cycle, which you can see in this example here, as well as the food sources, predators, etc. of an insect. In the middle we have an example of Charles Darwin on a beetle, just a fun doodle. And then on the far right is a leaf bug nymph that I illustrated with entomologist Royce Cumming as part of a project to document the different morphological differences of leaf bug nymphs. So over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to work with entomologists Royce Cumming, Stéphane Laturant, and him and Cindy to reconstruct 5 extinct species that were discovered preserved in amber. So there's 3 Cretaceous Corvidae species and 2 Cretaceous Hominicolidae, which are beetle-like roaches. And these are the 2 publications that these illustrations were published in, and these are what I'll be referencing today. So, these 2 specimens were found preserved in Burmese amber in the Huakang Valley in Myanmar. These specimens were being studied to better understand the morphology, evolution, and diversity of these extinct roaches. And while they're excellently preserved, these specimens are very small, very fragile, and difficult to photograph because of the reflective nature of both the insect and the amber. So scientific illustrations were created to help compile morphological information and make the specimen easier to view as a whole instead of just this specific holotype. Unlike fresh specimen that could be maneuvered and dried in the position that you'd like, these specimens took a lot of investigating to unravel their morphology. Researchers provided me with a variety of reference photos taken with microscopic cameras of the specimen from multiple angles, and together we mapped out the anatomy of the legs and the wing venation. And this is where I really appreciated my entomology minor, because had I not had such a great grasp of entomology morphology, this would have been almost impossible. And also, I didn't do this on my own. It was a combination effort between me and the entomologists. This is a screenshot of my dashboard in Adobe Illustrator, where I compiled and organized all the components of the roach. And so this is the reassembled layout. So the first illustration is how it looked inside the amber. The second is when I took apart all of the pieces and put it all back together, and I checked with the entomologist to make sure that the proportions were correct. And then the last illustration is the final full-color tonal illustration, which I created in Adobe Photoshop. Obviously, the colors were not preserved in the amber, so we used extant roaches for color inspiration, and as well as the iridescence, the small iridescence that you could see in the preserved specimen. So this roach specimen was very tricky because its legs were intertwined, and photographing them was very difficult. And once we were confident in the leg anatomy, I reassembled the pieces into the whole dorsal construction. For the Cretaceous Corvidae, these were discovered in Myanmar amber with oddly elaborate antennae and simple hind legs compared to extant corvids. To better understand the evolutionary shift from elaborate antennae to elaborate hind legs, I worked with researchers to create scientific illustrations that would make morphological comparisons easier. Obviously having them arranged in the standard position and being able to manipulate kind of how we view the insects that compare to each other really helps make those morphological comparisons a lot easier instead of trying to view just this one specific specimen preserved in amber. Like the roaches, I was provided with a variety of reference images of the specimen, and then I created outlines of each leg and segment in Adobe Illustrator, which you can see in this first example. And you can see all the different little legs. And then when I was coordinating with the researcher on what was correct proportions. And then once we pieced it together accurately, created this outline, then I drew the final illustration in Adobe Photoshop. This specimen I really appreciated because he died very considerately with all of his legs perfectly spread out, made it very easy for me to see. Didn't have to do any crazy camera angles. This specimen was particularly tricky because its abdomen was damaged and not preserved. So we used morphological information from the closely related club-like specimen that I showed you a few slides ago to visualize what its abdomen looked like. And while most of these anatomy of these specimens were very clearly preserved in amber, the colors unfortunately were not. This meant that I was actually given artistic liberties to come up with the coloring that I wanted, which is really exciting for a scientific illustrator since normally we're bound by what the colors that the object physically is or the specimen physically is. So it was actually pretty fun to use my creative liberties, artistic liberties, to come up with the colors for these insects. So, take these with a grain of salt. We don't know what the colors actually were. But we used extant specimen and all of their really fun, bright colors to kind of inspire what we thought these extinct specimens might have looked like. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I would like to give a special thank you to entomologists Royce Cumming, him and Cindy, and Stéphane Laturant, who I worked with to create these illustrations. And also thank you so much to the Montreal Insectarium, who provided all of the funding for these projects. And here are my references of the 2 publications. If you have any questions about scientific illustration or my work, please don't hesitate to reach out. Any questions?
For those extinct species type specimens, do you have to draw the underside as well as the top?
Usually, only the dorsal reconstruction was required for the paper's purpose. However, I did draw the ventral side just to get a better understanding of the legs and how they were positioned and how they would look from the dorsal side when they're like normal structure. But for these specifically, no. But I have in the past needed to draw the underside whenever it's relevant to the research. In the back.
Hi. For things like public displays, filling in missing pieces seems very appropriate. But for a scientific paper, filling in, taking those liberties, it seems like it can be positively misleading. And the same thing with color.
Yes.
Where do you strike the balance between providing something that is like what we expect it will look like versus if someone in 20 years makes a taxonomic decision based on liberties?
Yes. So in the research papers, when these were published, it was stated like, please note this, from here down, this was not preserved. We also included photos of the preserved specimens, so you could see exactly where it was cut off. So yes, it's very important to say exactly when artistic liberties are taken because we don't want my interpretation to be taken as fact. And same for the colors as well. It was noted next to all the figures like this color is an artist's interpretation. So yes, that's a great point that when we do get artistic liberties, we need to make sure that we note that. All right, thank you guys.